Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Severance, Season 1, Episode 4, The You Are. It's the episode I will be spoiling. I will be going in depth on discussing, so if you don't want to be spoiled, I'd recommend skipping this episode. But if you don't mind, if you're a fan of the show, welcome. Let's get into it, shall we? As we left off in episode 3, Helly was in the break room starting to read her compunction statement, and we pick right up as Helly is still in the break room, still reading, and Milchick is not buying it. He does not believe that she believes what she is saying. She doesn't believe that she is sorry. But the day is done. Nonetheless, her outie still requires to have her life outside. So even though Helly is not finished, Milchick takes her to the elevator, says goodbye. Elevator closes, opens back up. Helly's wearing something new. You know, as last we saw, she had the bandage. She had been cut by the window. So she's wearing a long sleeve shirt. And Milchick is waiting in the same position. Just absolute hell. Absolute hell. You're being punished at a job where you never leave, right? You get this feeling almost that, like, okay, we're done for the day, right? Makes you feel like you have a gap in time where you're not going to be punished, but not for Helly. It's just doors close, doors open, you're still at work, and just wearing different clothes. So Milchick takes her back to the break room to start beginning of the day. She read her statement 259 times the day before, and it wasn't enough. She still wasn't believable. Her apology was not believable. And she starts hearing a voice, kind of like a mumbling sound. And she asks what it is, and he doesn't know, and it's unclear. Just another one of these mysteries. If this is just her hallucinating this voice that's like sounds like it's on the other side of the door, kind of mumbling, or if it's an intentional sound that they do specifically for her, to help trigger her in some way, some psychological type of use for that. Either way, she's hearing a voice. She starts crying. Cut to Petey's phone ringing. Cut to now we're at Mark's house. Petey's phone is ringing. He goes to pick it up. He's got a ton of blocked numbers people have been trying to call Petey's phone. So Mark decides to hide the phone in a box in his basement. Cut to his innie is in the bathroom. Mark's innie in the bathroom looking at the map that he found behind one of the group photos. The map drawn by Petey while he was at work. He leaves, and Irving is concerned, as Irving always is. He's concerned because Helly is still in the break room. And he is, he's an overly concerned type of a guy, and he's concerned about Helly being in the break room. Bert shows up, the leader of the O&D department, optics and design. He had talked to Irving, and Irving had shown interest and excitement in this new handbook tote that was going to be released. So Bert decided to bring them some handbook totes before their release. Little special treatment for the micro data refinement crew because of the little blossoming love affair, it seems, between Bert and Irving. It has to be. That has to be a reference to Bert and Ernie. Bert and Irving. Has to be. Either way, it's a pleasant little coincidence. So Bert brings them the handbook, invites the whole crew to come to the O&D department, and Bert will give them a tour. Obviously, Dylan's very skeptical about the thing. However, Irving, very excited. He's given directions to the thing, which is, we find out that drawing maps is not a good thing. It's not something they should be doing in I mean, they don't. They're breaking the rules. Bert is breaking the rules, giving them this map to how to get to the O&D department. But Irving's excited, wastes no time, gets ready to go, heads on over. And as Irving leaves, Helly comes back, just dead inside. And Mark and Dylan see her. Their concern clearly looks on their face of concern. We find out that Helly said her statement 1,072 times. So 259 times the day before, and almost double that this day, until the machine finally believed that she was being honest. They're in the break room, not the break room, but they're in like, not the torture break room, but they're in the little kitchen space. And Mark is making some coffee. Helly and Dylan are sitting at the table, and Helly's describing the voice that she was hearing on the other side of the door. While Dylan, the voice he hears, or the sound he hears when he's been in the break room, is a crying baby. So they're hearing different things, which could mean that that's just the audio hallucinations that they have being different people, or they could be specifically different sounds that Lumen is using to trigger them or to control them in a certain way, to elicit certain emotions, to help them, brainwash them into believing this statement that they're saying. Either way, they're hearing different things. And Dylan has a trick for the machine. So I have a clip of that, because it's another great Dylan moment of how he tricks the machine.
What about the voice behind the door?
Crying baby, you mean?
No, like the angry mumbly guy.
Guys, really not supposed to talk about the break room. The important thing is you apologize correctly. Now you're out.
What you gotta do is trick the machine by thinking about something you're really sorry about. So I like to imagine my Audi's love maid with a MILF or two, which is obviously badass, but I do pity the husbands.
Which I love Dylan. Like, everything he says is so fun and so creative that it's just just makes the actual hell that they are in at least somewhat entertaining, because he's got like these fun, like, creative brain paths that his brain goes down. And of course, Mark being the business first guy, being the corporate cheerleader that he is, telling him that that's why we have our protocols and our procedures, so you can avoid the break room, right? You gotta follow the rules, which I wouldn't be surprised, considering Mark's knowledge of all of the different ways in which you can get busted trying to pass a message, that he has either personally experienced the break room a lot of times, which would have damaged his brain in a way to where he would be that kind of a guy who would be on the side of the corporation to the level at which Mark has, despite the fact that Mark, lost a friend. His friend was breaking the rules, had a map, right? They had questions, was trying to answer the questions, right? So it's even inside Lumen, Mark is two different people. His innie is two different people. He is the person that had a friend who was like interested in uncovering the mysteries of what they're doing, and also he is the by the book kind of, we must follow the rules in every way type of a dude. Cut to Irving shows up to O&D. Bert is giving him a tour. There's like drawers and cabinets where they store all the different art. They're bonding over the different paintings that they've seen. They're pontificating over the different imagery. Bert's telling him the logistics of their job, how art gets rotated and things end up here. And there's a painting that Irving really loved that he didn't see anymore, and Bert brings that painting out, and it's this painting of supposed to be of Keir Egan, the founder, the kind of the lord of Lumen, their kind of almighty person, sick in bed, and like people are tending to him. And it's an image that Irving really liked and was now just being stored in the O&D department. And while they're looking at the painting, they kind of touch hands and hold hands a bit, which makes Irving a little uncomfortable, makes Irving a little nervous, and he leaves. And on his way back to the MDR department, passing a conference room, an empty conference room, he sees in one of the chairs the book that Milchick was supposed to be reading to find clues, the book that was written by Mark's sister's husband, whose name is blanking. I'm blanking on his name at the moment. His name is Rickon. Finds Rickon's book, and he's freaked out. Meanwhile, back at MDR in the department, Mark is looking at the map again, this time at his desk. Helly comes up behind him, kind of surprises him, lets him know. He hides the map, obviously, doesn't want her to see it. She tells him that she's 4%. She's at 4% on her work, and Mark, being the corporate cheerleader that he is trying to be super stoked at that news. And then Helly finds the map. You know, Mark goes to do something else. Helly finds the map, and she starts calling him out. She starts seeing how bullshit he is, how he's like this corporate stooge, this corporate cheerleader about buy the books, rah, rah, rah. Meanwhile, his best friend has this map that's breaking the rules, and that he cares more about licking the boots of Lumen than he does about what happened to his friend, about trying to find out what his friend was trying to uncover. And Mark, in an attempt to, you know, prove that he is not being swayed by this map, which Dylan, you know, mentions how, you know, this is contraband. You're not supposed to have this thing. Mark decides to shred the map to prove to her that he doesn't care, which is a bummer. It's a bummer, right? That just, I think that shows more how damaged Mark is, even within Lumen, even within the severed program. That part of himself, the any part of himself, is still bifurcated, where part of himself has been conditioned to follow everything to the letter, while the real true part of himself is still attached to reality and his friend. And it's kind of a sad moment when he shreds the letter, but he does it. And now a quick word from our sponsor. Now you can wear the many faces. Original art by Ray Taylor. Select pieces from the ongoing series of abstract ink paintings. All products made with high quality materials, made right here in the USA. Go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF merch to browse the entire collection and save yourself an extra 10% when you check out by using coupon code RTSTMF. So once again, go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF merch and save 10% when you use coupon code RTSTMF. And now back to our show. And she goes on about, like, you don't care about your friend, you care more about this job, this bullshit job where we don't know what we do. And Mark's like, this isn't bullshit, it's mysterious, but it's not bullshit. Clearly still trying to toe that same line. He shreds the map. Irving comes back, grabs Mark and Dylan because he wants to show him the book, takes him to the book, doesn't bring the book to them. He takes them to the book. Mark picks it up, looks at it, and it's signed to Mark, which instantly makes him nervous, starts looking around, looking for cameras, looking to see if this is a plant, a loyalty test. Possibly Mark says he's going to turn it into Milchick. Dylan thinks maybe it's another message from Petey, right? First it was the map, now there's this book, and Dylan's got that creative brain. Irving, obviously, by the book, scared, concerned, nervous. But Mark says he's going to turn it into Milchick. Cut to Helly's back in the office alone, looking at one of the copying machines. She goes over, opens it up, and underneath is a paper cutter. And she grabs the paper cutter, busts into Cobell's office, demanding that she get a camera to record a message for her Audi to tell her that she wants to resign, or else she's going to cut off her 4 fingers. And Cobell's playing it, pretty calm. Milchick's there, concerned. And as a group, she gets the camera, she records her message to her Audi. Like, the whole department's there. Mark, Dylan, Irving, Milchick, Cobell, all watching Helly record this message to her Audi. As a group, they walk her to the elevator with the disc in her hand. Doors closed. Sound effect. Doors open, holding a different disc. Everybody's still standing in the same spot, which is kind of weird because time has passed in this situation. Like, similarly to when Milchick gave her, they were done for the day with her punishment. Milchick was still standing in the same spot the next morning. The entire group of people still standing in their same spot when she comes back with the response from herself. But before she goes in the elevator, actually, thinking that this is going to work, right? She recorded this thing. She thinks this is the time her Audi is going to agree with her, and she's not going to see these people again. She tells Mark to go to hell, but of course, you're already in hell. She tells Milchick that she was never sorry, right? And then goes in the elevator, ba-ba-ba-ba, doors closed, doors open. She's right back there with a disc. As a group, they sit down. Well, she sits down to watch the video. The entire department is there. Mark, Dylan, Irving, Milchick, Cobell. Watching this response video. Play the clip.
Hallie, I watched your video asking that I resign. I also received and responded to your previous request. I assumed that would resolve the issue, but now Miss Cobell says you threatened to cut off your fingers. I understand that you're unhappy with the life that you've been given. But you know what? Eventually we all have to accept reality. So, here it is. I am a person. You are not. I make the decisions. You do not. And if you ever do anything to my fingers, know that I will keep you alive long enough to horribly regret that. Your resignation request is denied. Turn it off.
Probably the most brutal scene to see yourself speaking to you in that way, to demean you and dehumanize you in that way, is so tragic. You want to talk about hell. This is the reality that they are all living in. And the crazy part, they're all seeing this message. They're all seeing how heartless her Audi is, which I don't know. We don't know if this is standard operating procedure. We don't know if this has happened before where they get to see video responses. I doubt it, but maybe. Who knows? Because there's clearly been other people who have tried to resign many times and failed, been denied, trying to pass messages many times. If I had money to put on who has been in these shoes, I would say Mark has, because Mark's innie seems like he's been damaged to that point where he is now on the side of them, whatever that Stockholm syndrome, right? But a brutal response from her Audi. Cut to Mark's at home, obviously done for the day, at home on the phone with his sister, Devin, who's pregnant. He's looking at birthing centers, talking crap about these birthing centers, how they look more like rundown ski resorts than birthing centers, which they could be. You never know. But while he's looking on the phone, hangs up with his sister, he gets a notification on his phone, news on his phone, that Petey has died, and there's a funeral. Undisclosed reasons of death, but Petey's dead. He's gone. And there's a funeral. While he's seeing this, he can hear the phone in the distance, Petey's phone, down in the basement, ringing still, vibrating as it rings. Right? That telltale heart type of a thing. Cut back to inside Lumen. Grainer shows up to Cobell's office, talking about Petey, how it's not her fault. Obviously, they know that he's dead. He's asking if she's heard anything from the board, kind of letting her know that he doesn't believe it's her fault. It's still no word for the board. But her big concern is the chip, because of the integration, which the board still does not recognize as being a reality. She is not as delusional as they are. She knows that there's something up, and she knows that there's this chip still that needs to get got. And after Grainer leaves, like, Cobell knows she's got to go do this thing. She's got to get this chip. And she says to herself what I believe to be the, what are they called? The core values of Lumen, right? Where we heard in the previous episode, a few episodes ago, the 9 core Lumen principles, where Irving said his favorite was cheer. I assumed that gratitude was one of these 9 core principles, but it is not. Because I believe what she says are the 9 core principles of Lumen. And they are vision, verve, wit, cheer, humility, benevolence, nimbleness, probity, and wiles. And as she says that, she picks up this picture that's on her desk, which I believe to be Keir Egan, while she's saying this. It's kind of like this mantra before she has to go do this thing, which is interesting. Everything Cobell does inside of at work is very puzzling, very, like, cryptic in a way. Whereas outside of work, she's playing this character of somebody who owns an all-natural, like, wellness type of a shop. So she says the core 9 principles. Cut to the funeral. Mark's at the funeral, shows up, runs into Selvig, a.k.a. Cobell. Obviously, we know why she's there. She's playing her character as the hippie herbalist lady. You know, gives Mark this excuse that Petey used to go to her shop all the time. Like, I hope at some point Mark goes to her shop, takes her up on this thing of this shop, which maybe there is a shop and it's just always closed, you know? But she definitely uses this shop as a way to flesh out her character outside of Lumen. But they meet at the thing. She's stoked because, like, oh, we can be, you know, we're a date now. Which is, like, the way she acts with Mark outside of work as Selvig is so completely different than how she treats Mark. Like, she has such contempt for Mark inside Lumen. But then outside, it's like she's like this. She's like an aunt. She, like, loves Mark and is seems to be very caring of Mark. Either way, Selvig goes to where the coffin is, the viewing of the body or whatever, and the daughter is there, June, who we heard about in the previous episode. Selvig's like, do you know him? He's like, oh, yeah, he's my dad, whatever. Very, like, awkward kind of interaction. Meanwhile, Mark goes to the bar, tries to order a whiskey on rocks, but all they have is wine. So we get some red wine, and Mark meets Petey's ex-wife, who, you know, Mark tells, she's like, who are you? He's like, oh, we work together. She's like, oh, did you really even know? So you didn't really even know him then because you were both. And obviously for Mark, he's got to play this like, oh, yeah, I didn't know. I mean, he didn't know Petey inside work, but he did get to meet Petey outside of work. So, like, the fact that he's there anyway, his excuse that he gave Selvig is like, oh, I saw in the article that was talking about this that he worked at Lumen, and he thought maybe they knew each other inside. Which for Selvig is like, okay, probably very weird that Mark is there because they were best friends at work. And outside of work, they're not supposed to know each other at all. And, of course, that's what Petey's ex-wife brings up. It's also what June brings up when Mark goes to sit down. The thing's about to start, and he's sitting there, and June's right there. He's like, oh, you're June. And then she has this great line of, like, when are you guys going to stop thinking that turning your brain off is the right way to deal with stuff? And, of course, Mark doesn't have a good answer. He doesn't know, you know. Mark's got his own trauma that he tried to run away from. Because it's easier to run away from a problem than to deal with it. That's why, June. It's easier to just... the reason why people do drugs. It's like a way for them to escape reality, to not deal with reality. But instead of drugs, you turn your brain off in the capitalist way. But still, they both giving Mark this same type of energy. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. So Mark doesn't know how to answer that. And there's a song where video is playing of Petey playing guitar with June playing Enter the Sandman by Metallica, which as a song it relates in a lot of ways to this show, to the idea of Severance, Hush Little Baby, Don't Say a Word. You know, the kind of even to the point of the idea of like the only time they're outside of Severin is like their time to rest and relax and sleep. And, you know, sleep obviously being a part of the Enter the Sandman. But while that video is playing, Selvig takes the opportunity to go to the body with a drill. And out of everything in the show that feels believable, I buy it to an extent, you know, like, okay, I'm with you. Selvig's ability to drill into Petey's head, which we saw where the chip goes when Helly got it. It goes deep in the center of the brain and then has these like fins that come out. But Selvig pretty effortlessly, while Enter the Sandman is playing in the other room, drills into Petey's head and then uses little tweezers to get out this chip. So far, the biggest stretch of believability for me. But I get it. What are they going to do? I mean, okay, just got to get this chip out. Maybe if they had just written it different where the chip is more easily accessible. But whatever. Okay, she's able to do it. She's able to blindly drill directly into where this chip is supposed to be and is able to extract it from the center of Petey's brain. I'll go along with you, show, because you're so good regardless of that. So she does her thing. After the song is done, Mark kind of filled with a lot of emotions. Obviously, he's mourning the loss of this guy that he kind of barely ever knew, but I'm sure it's also bringing up emotions of his ex that he lost to a car accident a year ago, right? Bringing up those emotions that he's never actually dealt with. So he gets up and runs into Selvig at the back of the little church there, and they both leave. And then standing outside of their homes, they go back home. She's asking him if it was just too sad or whatever, and he's like, you know, I don't know. What? Like he has to play it off like he didn't really know. But Mark, as he's about to go inside of his house, closes the door, decides not to go in, instead drives off. And Mark drives to what appears to be like a roadside memorial. I assume the place where the car accident happened where his wife died. And he climbs up this embankment and goes to a tree where he's kind of feeling the tree and he's crying and he's getting emotional. So it's like clearly this brought up a lot of emotions to him. There's a lot of emotions that are tied between Petey and, I mean, two of his favorite people in a lot of ways in two different realities of his life are now gone. Like his innie is mourning, in a lot of ways, mourning Petey's disappearance. On the outside, he knew Petey a little bit and started to uncover some weird stuff. But also that loss also probably triggering his feelings of his wife. Cut to Cobell back at work. Throws the chip in a little baggie on the desk. Milchick's in her office, and he's like, "Is that Petey?" It's like, "Yep, that's Petey's chip." Tells Milchick to go take it down to diagnostics. I don't know. Maybe they can extract some of his memories from try maybe to figure out what he did when he was out. Who knows? We don't know. But as he leaves, or as he's about to leave, Mrs. Casey comes through the door. Right? The wellness lady, who is like kind of, she's very calm, very soothing, but also kind of feels not all there. Kind of feels a bit robotic. Kind of feels just empty inside. Just doesn't really feel like a fully functioning human. But either way, Casey comes in, and Miss Casey comes in, and Cobell wants her to do a wellness session with Mark. And Mark didn't ask for it. Milchick is inquiring over the whole thing. But she's like, I think Mark needs this, right? And probably, you know, seeing Mark outside, probably, you know, that he went to this funeral or whatever, she probably knows that probably brought up things. So, you know, she wants Mark to, I don't know, who, like, maybe it was like an ounce of compassion that Cobell brought with her for Mark into the situation. So she wants him to have a session with Miss Casey. Meanwhile, Irving runs into Bert, tracks Bert down as he's hanging paintings, and they talk about another painting that was just hung, and Bert invites Irving to join him while he goes through to rotate these paintings. So Irving, no problem, they smooth things over with the kind of awkwardness of them touching hands and then Irving kind of getting nervous and leaving all of a sudden. He kind of smooths that over, make sure there's nothing, that everything's okay, kind of making sure they're on the same page as far as everything goes. So Bert invites him to join, and they're talking about Irving's napping and talking about their ideas of what their outies do, and Bert kind of being jealous in some ways of Irving's ability to be napping and is probably his outie's life in some way. And they talk about the handbook, and it's very interesting, you know, aspects, very interesting when they talk about the handbook. So anyway, let's play the clip.
You're crazy. I wish I could nap. I think I sleep 15 hours a night up there.
It's a character flaw.
Just means you're a party guy, Disco King.
I can't be falling asleep, Bert.
Who cares?
The handbook cares. No workplace shall be repurposed for slumber.
I know the handbook, old man. I'm more of a first edition guy. Original word of Kier. And I shall whisper to ye, dutiful through the ages. In your noblest thoughts and epiphanies shall be my voice. You are my mouth. And through ye I will whisper on. When I am 10 centuries demised.
I don't understand.
He doesn't just speak to us through the handbook, the paintings. He finds other ways.
Still very, like, religious sounding, feeling, but also an interesting thing that opens Irving up to expanding himself past just the words of the handbook, which Irving, very much by the book kind of a guy. So Bert opening Irving's brain up to the fact that Kieran can speak to us in ways that aren't just the handbook and the paintings. Very interesting. Cut to Mark, not in his wellness check yet. He's hiding in the bathroom, reading the book, The You Are, talking about, in one of the passages he's reading, about how your job needs you more than you need your job. So this book clearly is going to give Mark an alternate thought process for that reality, for his Innie's reality, where he's been brainwashed into being this certain person, and now this book is, similarly to how Bert is opening Irving's mind, this book is opening Mark's mind to the possibilities of new ideas and new ways to think about work, as like an alternate religion to this Egan religion that is the Lumen. So then cut to, what I've noticed at the end of all of these episodes is there's a lot of like fast cuts, right? Where we're going between different characters very fast as the episode kind of ramps up to the credits. And in one of the things, we're cutting between the four different employees, Mark, Dylan, Helly, and Irv, right? Mark is in his wellness check. They light a candle, that candle that Selvig got from Mark's basement, his wife's candle. That is now in this wellness room. It is lit, and he's asked by Miss Casey to sculpt his feelings with this lump of clay, sculpt them into something that he's feeling. And while he's sculpting, Cobell is watching on her computer monitor in her office. She's watching. There's a camera inside the wellness room, and she's watching Mark as he's sculpting a tree. So that is one of the things that is cut between at the end of this episode. We also see Dylan alone in the office because Mark is in his wellness check. Irving is out, hanging out with Bert. Helly leaves. She's like, okay, I'm done for the day. She ends up leaving. So Dylan is alone in the office, and he goes immediately over to Mark's desk and looks through his drawer and finds this book, and he starts reading it. Dylan's starting to reading it, and he's reading a poem. Helly, after she leaves, we see that she has an extension cord in her hand, and she goes to the elevator, and you see that she's like checking the stability of the lighting inside of the elevator. You see her throwing her key card away in the trash can. She pulls in another trash can into the elevator, and she's basically going to hang herself. Irving goes back to O&D, right? Because he wants to go see Bert again. So he goes back to O&D. Nobody's there. But while he's in the optics and design department, he hears these noises on the other side of this door. He goes to the door, peeks inside, and it's this huge room, this huge department with tons of people working in this department with machines that are doing stuff. You got people pushing carts around. You got people checking things and marking them down on clipboards, like this whole other thing that Irving just stumbled upon that is attached to the optics and design department. And just as you do that, you see Helly put the extension cord around her neck and kind of flashing back to moments where she's talking to Mark, and Mark's kind of encouraging her. And then she kicks the trash can out from under her and hangs. And that's the end of the episode. Brutal. I mean, you want to talk about somebody that's determined to get out of this place. Helly is determined. So we'll see what happens with her. This book, The You Are, is definitely going to be an issue as far as is going to be impactful. It seems to be like a self-help type of a book that Mark, not only is Mark starting to read it, but Dylan's starting to read it. Irving is having his mind expanded, talking to Bert and having him recontextualize the handbook and the meanings of the handbook and kind of using the classic, the original version of the handbook as kind of this way to open his mind up. So all of the characters are slowly having their minds opened up within all of their innies are starting to expand their minds and open themselves to new thoughts. So an interesting episode. We got to hear the 9 core lumen principles, which those, again, vision, verve, wit, cheer, humility, benevolence, nimbleness, poverty, and wiles. Petey's dead, so Mark never found out that Cobell and Selvig are the same person. Still doesn't know, obviously. Having to have that, having to kind of make up a story himself to explain why he was even at Petey's funeral. Which that could have, depending on what he said to Selvig, that could have opened things up, but thankfully his story made sense. It worked. So yeah, that's that's the end. We'll see what happens to the crew in the next episode. Episode 5, which is titled... Episode 5 of Severance is titled The Grim Barbarity of Optics and Design. Maybe we find out that there was a coup. Maybe optics and design includes all of those people that are in. I mean, obviously that big room is a huge mystery now. The sounds that they hear on the other side of the break room, like, are those intentional sounds or are those just hallucinations that happen when you're there for, saying this thing for hundreds to 1,000 times until the machine believes you? Anyway, great episode. Like, things are starting to ramp up a bit. Things are starting to get going. But anyway, Severance Season 1, Episode 4, The You Are. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at InspiredDisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at InspiredDisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.